Hello and welcome. I am Steve Clemons, editor-at-large of The Hill. We're delighted to have you joining us for Safeguarding Seniors, our live virtual event examining how we should be caring for older Americans in the time of the coronavirus. From timely quality care to the role of innovation, we're going to be asking lawmakers and experts how the current infrastructure can be beefed up to meet our needs. We'll ask what is being done to eliminate disparities that are exacerbating the situation for African American and Hispanic communities and others in need. I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Better Medicare Alliance, for supporting this event and making this conversation possible. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at #TheHillVirtuallyLive. I know that's a lot of characters, but that's what we've got. We are broadcasting live and we'll be calling on you, the audience, to reach out with questions. Some of you will get to ask your questions live and on video, so I hope you're prepared for a camera. If you want to ask a question, enter it in the Q&A menu at the bottom of your screen. And if you experience any trouble with the video, I'm told that refreshing the page should mostly fix the problem, and that probably goes for me too. Now let's dive in. Our first guest this afternoon is Congresswoman Doris Matsui of California. Congresswoman Matsui is a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee and is the co-chair of the House Democratic Caucus Task Force on Aging and Families. Congresswoman, thank you so much. And first, let me just say, I know you got married on Easter. Congratulations. That's going to be a memorable time. So that was some very nice news to see. So how's it going so far?
It's very well. Thank you very much, Steve, for mentioning that. And yes, even during these times of clouds, there's some light there. So we're really happy.
Well, I know you were the co-chair of the Task Force on Aging and Families, and you have sought out to look at kind of core pillars that we should be considering when we think about seniors and our obligation to them. I think you've even called it an Older Americans Bill of Rights. And I'd love to get a sense of what you feel are the key pillars that we should be worried about as we think about public policy and our communities today.
Well, I think in particular, if we look at some of the challenges we have today, the Task Force on Families and Aging have really looked forth on things like healthcare, financial security, protecting caregivers, long-term facilities and oversight of them, and food security. And in particular, our focus with this COVID-19 crisis has been from the range of issues, from safe grocery shopping to how do you get your regular medical care, to oversight of senior facilities, nursing homes. And as we move forward, we really felt that these are principles that are important anyway during any time in a person's life, but we really want to emphasize that we're there for the seniors and want to ensure that they get the help they need and deserve during this time. And a lot of the principles really involve healthcare. That's really very important to seniors, as you know. Medicare, the importance of that, especially during these times, even opening up the enrollment for Medicare for those people who probably did not get on at the right time. Opening up a special enrollment for the ACA. We think that is really very important too. And we really want to make sure that seniors do not have any negative outcomes because of this crisis. They are particularly vulnerable, as we know. And because of that, we want to ensure that we really focus on the principles that we feel are really very important. You know, seniors are afraid to leave their homes if they're in homes. If they're in senior care homes, obviously they can't. And so we're trying to figure out how they get their medical checkups, care that they need. One of the things that we found out that we have been expanding telehealth during this time. And this is an opportunity that we've always felt was there, but this has really pushed it forward. And what we've done here in the CARES bill and everything else was open it up.
Right.
So that seniors can actually get their care from their homes or from any other site using any kind of device, phone, smartphone, they can use Skype or whatever. And this is changing, I think, not only healthcare for seniors during this pandemic, but for everybody. And I believe that as we move forward, this is going to be one of the things that we can look to as changing healthcare.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about telehealth and Medicare, at least right now, paying those bills for telehealth care and the doctors. I don't really know all of the details of it, but I was speaking to Congresswoman Donna Shalala, and she said, Steve, that's really important, but there's some blind spots out there in this too, that some people are finding it a real struggle to get bills paid. And also the computer literacy is just an expectation. And I'm interested, you're in the Bay Area, and maybe there's a kind of a different crowd there that's more computer literate, but do we have blind spots when we look at how we're innovating to reach seniors?
Well, of course we are, but you can use any kind of device. They can use a phone, so they can check with the providers in that way. Obviously, not everybody is computer literate, and obviously we have to force that on them too, but this is a situation where, because of the fact you can use any kind of device, it's open to everyone. And the fact that we use Medicare to open it up so we can get reimbursements. And we're expanding it even further because as we look forward, we have it for now for the federal qualified health centers. Behavioral health is so important now, particularly during these times. And we find, and I'm talking to my community health providers, these clinics now are as far as their appointments for behavioral health, it's all full. And they're using telehealth. And it's been absolutely incredible. And you look at the aging workforce too, the physicians, the psychologists, everybody, they may not feel as comfortable, in fact, seeing people, but they would if you can telecommute and really act in that way. And so this has been a time when we have used technology. And I think it's important to recognize that we have to continue this too. Been important not only for the senior community, but for everybody too. And that's one of the things that have come out of this, obviously, during these troubled times. But seniors also need to understand that they have to also think about themselves in a sense of not only themselves, but their caregivers too. We have to have safety caregivers too. So these are the important things as we move forward, that we consider seniors as the population as part of a family. And so, particularly during these pandemics, it's going to be so important to look upon the people who are the caregivers to ensure that they have their own financial security and make sure that they have paid leave so they can take care of the people in their household. And we go through this whole range and we find one thing will lead to another. And even as we're looking at this, thinking also about how we use like food security, making sure that seniors can get their food, maybe with extended SNAP, obviously, but using EBT, the pilot there. So in a sense, because of the fact we are having to be sheltered, people now are looking at things differently too, because they've had to, absolutely had to.
Right. I'm interested, right now, we finally moved to the costs of testing. A substantial portion of the cost portion of people's health right now is being more widely covered because of the time we're in. You and I have talked in the past that we've had struggles over, drug prices and struggles over every little bit of the healthcare scene. But right now we've got a wide aperture that many of those costs are being covered. Are you worried about this being rolled back after the coronavirus era, if you will, is sort of brought to a narrow thing, that we're going to lose the funding, the support, this wider aperture for supporting people's health needs?
I don't believe we can narrow this aperture at all. If you look at what's happening in this pandemic, we understand the importance of, for instance, testing and contact tracing and isolation and treatment. That's never going to end when you think about the world we are in today. Public health has to be reconfigured so we are prepared for these things happening. And I also believe that healthcare, I've always believed in universal healthcare. How we do it might be challenging, but on the other hand, if we look at what's happening today, healthcare is having to change. And if you look at, as I mentioned, telehealth, that's been something we've talked about for a very long time. We are pushing it out now in a way that we never have. And I really believe that as we push this out even further, we'll find out we even have cost savings too. And undeniably, our workforce is being challenged today too. And by using technology, I believe that we can expand the workforce.
Well, thank you. We have a question from our audience. This is Geetha Bansal. I think Geetha is joining us. It may take a second to bring her on. Geetha is a program officer at the National Institutes of Health. We'll see. Geetha, are you there? I see a very cool little avatar. Has Geetha joined us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you great. And I love I guess it's a monkey.
I didn't even know it was going to come on.
Well, it's wonderful.
Well, Geetha, the floor is yours. You have a question for Congresswoman Matsui.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to ask this question. So my question is as follows. So understanding and acknowledging that it is an unfolding story, nevertheless, it is well known that being old is a risk factor for several health associated conditions. And being old, along with these underlying health-associated conditions, is definitely a risk factor for COVID-19, which is what we're all facing now. So my question relates to, compounded by the knowledge that asymptomatic transmission is occurring every day, what are the plans for getting older people into the workforce, those that are greater than 50, 60, in such a way that it is safe for them?
Right.
Well, as there is no stigma and discrimination associated with being old.
Terrific question. Thank you, Geetha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Geetha. Yes, I really believe that this is something that we should really look at, because honestly, testing is going to be really very important in order to ensure that people can go out and finally be able to work the way they want to work. I think testing is always going to be a part of this through this period of time, whatever it is. And if we have a workforce that is being challenged, I really believe that that's, in a sense, important to make sure that those individuals have the testing that they really need. And that's why in these areas where you have seniors congregating, where you have more senior population, testing is going to be vital there. And I really believe that that's going to be part of the way we live for a while. And also, too, as I mentioned, telehealth. A lot of the providers perhaps now will be using telehealth much more than they have before. And particularly as we bring in people who want to work, who might have been retired, decided to take a break, they can also participate in telehealth too. So we might be expanding that population of workforce.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much. It's great to spend some time with you today. I hope we do this with you every day.
That'd be great. Thank you.
But thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.